So this is a probability test, substantial contribution to the economy of Hong Kong, which in many ways is like asking how long is a piece of string. Now, under the enhancement measures, which are a reflection of the policy change that CY Leung announced on January the 15th this year. Essentially, what has happened is that the approvability test finally, for the investment visa, has had some light shed on it by the Immigration Department. And so on May the 4th, they essentially did two things when it comes, they did a few things, but there are two key things that I want to talk about tonight. The first is that they lifted up, or they pulled back the curtain somewhat on what criteria the Immigration Department used to assess whether a foreign national can make a substantial contribution to the economy of Hong Kong or not. And on the guidebook that the Immigration Department put out, they've laid out essentially this text. But actually in this, there's nothing new in my view. Essentially what they're doing is saying this is what we're looking for now.
Give away all their secrets.
But it's going to be the same old thing. And I think a lot of people were kind of hoping that the Immigration Department would be prescriptive when it came to disclosing to users of the service as to what is required to get approved. That is, if you create 3 jobs and if you invest 3 million Hong Kong dollars, or if you do this or if you do that, then we'll give you the visa, which is the case in many other jurisdictions. But in Hong Kong, of course, it's not like that. The Immigration Department are not going to give away their ability to say no to applications. And so in this respect, insofar as the new transparency over what it takes to get approved goes, is welcome, absolutely welcome. But for me, it's nothing new. So that was the first thing that happened with the introduction of the enhancement measures from May the 4th. The second thing that happened is that this is where they split it up into 2 particular visa scenarios. On the one hand, under the business investment visa, you have the entrepreneur visa, and on the other, you've now got the startup visa. But as you'll see, essentially, it really doesn't mean anything at all. Because the difference between being an entrepreneur and being a startup is if you can tick this box on page 3, section 6.1, application form ID 990A. That's what it boils down to. Essentially, if you're going to be a startup visa holder, you need to firstly prepare your application for a business investment visa under the normal guise, and this is what I'm talking about for you today. But at the same time as you're preparing all of that, what you have to do is now begin to approach the certain accredited programs that the Immigration Department recognise as being suitable under this section. And so if you can approach these accredited programs and get accepted onto them and produce the paperwork to this end, and then you tick this box, essentially the fact that you tick this box is going to mean the Immigration Department will favourably consider your application, which is immigration speak for approve your application. And it doesn't matter fundamentally how weak the rest of your application is. As long as you can tick this box, you're home and hosed. Now, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I personally think that it's not a great thing, because as you'll see, getting an investment visa approved isn't a walk in the park. It's a lot of work. It takes 4 to 6 months. It's a lot of effort. You've got to make investment. You're living on the edge for all of that time to know whether or not you're going to get approved, and therefore your future of the business ultimately rests in the hands of the Immigration Department. On the other hand, you see, if you then decide that you're going to travel a startup path, whilst you prepare all your paperwork on this side in order to progress with your application, you've now got to manage a significant due diligence process to get accepted onto one of these programs. And as you'll see, getting accepted onto one of these programs is not particularly easy. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know, the weeks and months that it takes you to navigate the process to become, to be able to tick this box, versus the process to persuade the immigration department of the merits of your application, and therefore you're worthy of an approval because you clearly can make a substantial contribution to the economy of Hong Kong. Those two exercises mean essentially you've doubled the amount of work that you need to do to get immigration status. And I personally would much prefer to spend all my intellectual endeavour and effort on passing the approvability test for the visa without necessarily being able to tick this box, than spending weeks and months chasing down these accelerator programs to see whether or not you can get accepted onto them. And as you'll see, there's a lot of effort and energy involved in getting that. So, is it the panacea that everybody thinks it is? In my view, no. Is it a welcome development? Absolutely, because finally, entrepreneurs who wouldn't normally stand a chance of being able to get approved under the entrepreneur stream because they don't have the money, they don't have the background, they don't have whatever it takes in order to get approved under the substantial contribution to the economy of Hong Kong test, they now at least have a bit of hope that if they get accepted onto one of these programs, they will get the immigration status that they're looking for. So that's the fundamental difference between being a startup and an entrepreneur.